what is the PMBOK and what is used for. My name is Guilherme and I'm a project management expert. I help professionals to become successful project managers. Before I forget, don't forget to like and share this video here so more people can learn what is the PMBOK because there's a lot of misunderstanding out there. And also, this content here is part of the warm-up of the Project Management Summit. The Project Management Summit, it's a free event I'm going to make. There are going to be 3 classes where I'm going to show you the Project Management Mastery Journey, how you can develop your skills, of course, to increase your performance there. Everything's free. You get a free certificate there. Only thing you need to do is click in the link and subscribe there. So what is the PMBOK? So first of all, PMBOK stands for Project Management Body of Knowledge. And it's, of course, the acronym is the PMBOK. As you can see here in the screen, the Project Management Body of Knowledge, the PMBOK. So here see Project Management Body of Knowledge, PMBOK. It's a guide or it's a standard from the Project Management Institute. Going back a bit, the Project Management Institute is the biggest project management organization around the world. There are others, like you're going to find people talk. There are others or other organizations in Europe. There are others. In some other countries, might be other smaller ones. Sometimes they talk about different certifications, but in general, the Project Management Institute is the biggest project management organization around the world, and it's present in most of the countries around the world there. And they create the project management body of knowledge, which is a standard with project management best practices. So what is very important that you understand? PMBOK is not a framework. PMBOK is not a methodology. So PMBOK was created as a compile of best practices of a lot of project managers there. So PMBOK is not written by one person, so it's not someone that say, I'm going to write a book about project management and come up with the PMBOK. PMBOK has the contributions of hundreds of project manager professionals around the world. So a lot of people, they sit together and discuss, they share their experience, their hurdles, their challenges there, and they come up with the PMBOK. They get to an agreement and they come up with the PMBOK there. The PMBOK, the first version, I think started as a paper, white paper, started I think in 1986, and then it has been evolved since then. So it has almost 40 years since the first draft of that. Of course, project management has been evolving this time, and together with that, the project management body of knowledge. But very important, if someone is telling you, I'm following the PMBOK, are you using the PMBOK? I use the PMBOK framework, I use the PMI framework, I use the PMBOK methodology. That's a sign they do not understand what's the PMBOK, and that's what is for there. What do I mean? So what is a standard with best practice? So the idea of the PMBOK is that you're going to have a lot of things that they work most of the times, but does not mean, and they are intended to cover all types of projects. So you can imagine that some type of things you're not going to need in all the projects. A very simple example. Let's assume that you are working with IT and you are working to develop a software. So the main thing that you're going to have there, it's hours. In the PMBOK, if you look on the 6th edition there, if you look on the older editions there, you're going to see that's a knowledge area called procurement. But if you're just working with a team with hours, or if you're working a marketing campaign, you might not have anything to procure. You might not have to buy anything. You might not have suppliers for that. So that specific area does not make sense. It has communication with stakeholders. Well, communication with stakeholders can be very different. If you're working a construction project, for example, for a bridge, there's a lot of stakeholders that can be influenced on that. For example, the traffic. If you need to close the roads, you're going to impact a lot of people. So you need to manage those type of stakeholders. If you're looking to a software where your team is sitting everybody in the same room, the stakeholders that you're going to manage, it's a different. The impact that you're causing there is quite different. And then that's of course why PMBOK is intended to be a standard. And this comes from a long time already. So everybody that's saying that they are following the PMBOK. So here I'm showing it to you a print screen of the PMBOK saying that PMBOK is a guide with foundational knowledge that should help organization to build their own methodology, policies, procedures, rules, tools, and techniques. Again, if you see someone saying that I'm following the PMBOK, they do not know what's the PMBOK. And if they say they are doing something that because PMBOK says it should be done, they also do not understand the PMBOK. It's up to the project manager to select what makes sense. And in the past years, there was a quite pivotal change there in the PMI. Because, for example, this version that you are seeing here, it's the 6th edition. This version here was a process-oriented PMBOK. What's a process-oriented standard there? Well, already in this edition, they had the PMBOK, but attached to that, it was the Agile Practice Guide. But the process-oriented view of the PMBOK from 6th edition and the previous ones, they basically divided the knowledge or the project management knowledge in knowledge areas, which goes from scope, schedule, cost, quality, resource, communication, risks, procurement, and stakeholders. And to make sure that they could connect all those areas together, they created an area called integration there. So that the way they were organized, each of those areas, it had specific process groups to follow. So those areas, they were divided in process groups: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, controlling, and closing. Very important for you to understand, a process group is not a project phase, because project phase can be different, can be coming from different industry standards, different requirements from the project, but invariably all the projects go through those process groups. So keep in mind what's a difference. So what's an example of a project phase? If you are working to a construction, for example, construction project, it can be that you have a design phase and you have a construction phase. So again, process groups, they're not phase. So in this edition of the PMBOK, you had those process groups, and then inside of them, each of those knowledge areas were distributed in process steps that you would take. To make a very simple example here, let me show to you for the integration. This is where you start a project. First, you would start with develop a project chart. What's a project chart? It's a way to officially start the project there. And then you would move to plan your project there and execute the project, monitor the project, and control the project. And of course, inside of each of those process groups, there are tasks or activities for the team and for the project manager to work on. But so you had all those process steps and where you land in the project. That was the PMBOK 6th edition there. What changed from the 6th to 7th edition? That's the currently one. Well, in the 7th edition, with the evolution of project management, the PMI thought about that, considering there's a lot of waterfall, but there's also agile, Scrum, Kanban, safe, hybrid approach. What's a hybrid approach? Where they mix stuff from that mix items from waterfall, they mix items from agile, then they create something specific that fits a project. And they decided to change this view from the knowledge areas to process groups to a principle-based standard. What do I mean by principle-based standard? So instead of thinking about the knowledge area of scope right now, specifically, you are going to see your project in terms of principles that you need to follow to have a project executed successfully. Does it mean that the knowledge areas are not valid anymore? Of course not, because you are always going to have those knowledge areas. So the knowledge areas, they are going to be there. It's just that the idea, your goal as a project manager is not to get stuck to a process, It's not focusing on, for example, only managing the scope of the project. Of course, it's important to manage the scope of the project, but you as a project manager, you should be able to build this strategic view of the project, the overview of the project there, to make sure that you are managing the value delivery of the project. So instead of managing tasks, the target is that you are going to manage the value of your project. So to give you an idea about those management principles there. So the PMBOK, what are those principles that there's that the 7th edition standard talks about? Stewardship, that's basically meaning that you are making the right use of your resource. Team, that's a project, it's a team sport, as I like to say. So you need to be able to operate in a team, not only to lead the team. That's very important because a lot of people think that project manager is telling people what to do, which is not. Being able to work as a team, it's also that you understand you are a team member. So not you are going to tell people what to do, but you need to do your part of the project. You need to add your value of your project. You need to manage your stakeholders. By stakeholders can be your team members, can be the management of the company, the customer, or like in the example that I mentioned about a construction project, you might impact a local community there that they are very important stakeholders because otherwise they might affect your project directly there. Your goal is to manage the value delivery that you have there. So manage the value delivery. The idea is that you're going to have this system thinking. What's the system thinking? It's basically this overview I mentioned to you. Don't focus only in the process because the process exists to deliver some type of value. Any type of process exists to deliver value, not to execute the project itself, the process itself. And a lot of people forget that. And that's also why PMI switch gears a bit. Instead of only talking about a process-based standard, they focus now in a principle-based standard. They talk about leadership. Well, if you are going to work with a team, you need to lead this team. So you need to understand how to lead your team. You need to understand how to tailor your approach. What's tailoring your approach? It's going to say, I'm not going to focus on waterfall. I'm not going to focus on Scrum. I'm going to see what type of constraints I have in my project, in my company, with my customer, and I'm going to blend what is needed to be able to get the best value as I can. That's the idea there. Make sure that you can deliver with quality. Quality is very important for any type of project that you're working on. Make sure that you understand that projects are usually complex. They are in a complex environment. What's a complex environment? You are trying with a project, you are trying to create something completely new. Sometimes you have new team members, you have unclear requirements, and you can have a lot of uncertainty, which connects fully those two there together because uncertainty is risk. So you need to be able to understand this complexity and you need to be able to deal with that. And to be able to deal with that, you need to be adaptable and resilient. And of course, whatever happens, you need to expect that you're going to change. What's interesting about this change here, that this change from a process based to a standard, to a principle standard there, those principles they are going to be used in any type of project. And of course, depending on the type of project, you might need to focus on one of those principles here with, with more energy and with different type of team organization and so on. But it's always important. So what is the PMBOK? It's a standard with best practices to help you to understand how to execute a project focusing on value delivery. I'm going to repeat again. It's not a methodology, it's not a framework, it's a standard with good practice to help you as a project manager to deliver value for organization. Following those principles, executing those principles in the right way, you're going to get the value that you need. Does it mean that you don't need to think about the scope of WBS? If a WBS, if you don't know it, is a work breakdown structure, you don't need to think about the critical path. All those things are still important. Is how those things are going to still be needed there. The only thing that you should not only focus in your process, but you should focus in value. The process exists to deliver some type of value for the organization. That's something that you need to important for you to understand. And what's the PMBOK is used for? Well, if it's a standard with good practice, I've already presented what's also written in the PMBOK. It's used for companies to understand, to help project managers and companies to understand how to work in projects, how companies can build their own procedures, their own methodology, their own templates, their own deliverables, considering their own constraints. What are their constraints or boundary conditions? Every company is going to be different. Industries are different. Customers are different. Even if you are in the side of the same company, the same industry, and working maybe with a similar customer there, you're going to find also difference because departments are different, the teams are different, the type of work is different. For example, you can have a company that has, let's say, has a project, they are expanding, so they are creating a new factory, but also they have an IT project, or they have a project to create a new product. Those type of projects have the different requirements. This is also very important to understand, and that's also part of the understanding that project are, projects are unique. What is a project? Everything, basically, to put in a very simple way, everything new that a company or as a society that you want to create, it goes via project. So I think I have a nice image here. All those things that you see in the screen, they are or they were projects at some point. The Coliseum in Rome, a new car, a new manufacturing line, a new mine. By the way, this mine here, this is one of the projects it was my first project as a project manager, and I was responsible for this piece here. It seems small, but it was a very complex one. Coming back, closing the brackets here, an iPhone, a new factory, a new house, energy transition. Energy transition goes via project, but also movies. A movie is a project. A big event like the World Cup, the Olympic Games, a new software. All those things are project. And I can go even further. Let's say the company Starbucks wants to open a new store. That's a project. Starbucks wants to develop their supply chain. That's a project. That's why you see project management all over companies. And that's also part of the idea of having something that's a standard, the PMBOK, a standard principle base. Because if you have so much variety of projects, so much challenges with projects, because you can imagine here, this project here, you see all this green area, this is the Amazon forest. So to execute a project in the Amazon forest is quite different from building a house, I don't know, in a city. So just keep that in mind. What's the use for the PMBOK? Because if you understand those principles and if you also understand those knowledge areas, even though they are from past editions from the PMBOK, that will give you the base and the foundation to understand how a methodology should work. Different companies might have different methodology, how a procedure in a company, how it works, and you're more even important that you're going to understand what are the difference from one project to another. So not every time you see someone saying, I follow the PMBOK method, the PMI method, the PMI method is outdated. And I've heard that if you look for the LinkedIn, you see that in a lot of posts, people talking about Agile and saying the PMBOK method is outdated. They do not even know what the PMBOK is about, how they can say it's outdated. And if they would read the principles that are there, and if you read the PMBOK, if you read the Scrum Guide, and if you do a training with Kanban Academy there, and believe Kanban University there, you're going to see those principles are there because they are universal. That's what our principles are about. They meant to be universal. So next time that you hear someone saying that they are following the PMBOK or they are following the PMI, explain to the person that PMBOK is not a standard. Sorry, that the PMBOK it's not a framework. PMBOK is not a methodology. PMBOK is a standard with best practice intended to be customized by the project manager. Because I've seen a lot of people doing bad project manager and they are saying that they are following the PMBOK, or they are justifying that a project failed because we follow the PMBOK. Every time that you hear something saying something like that, have a good understand that those people do not understand what the PMBOK is about. And if you look on the principles here, they talk about leadership. Good leadership is good leadership. If you are using waterfall, if you're using Scrum, if you're using Kanban, if you're using SAFe, if you are using Extreme programming, if you are using Prince2, good leadership is good leadership. Bad leadership is bad leadership anywhere. Principle. Principle is something that's a fundamental true proposition that always serves to guide you. So keep that in mind when you are thinking about the new edition of the PMBOK. And if you are studying for the PMP, what's important for you to understand that PMI started to discuss the 8th edition of the PMBOK, meaning that soon they are going to release a new edition from the PMBOK. So if you are studying already for the PMP exam, if you do not know what PMP is, Project Management Professional Certification, that's most recognized and most known certification around the world. But to apply for that, you need to have 3 years of working experience with project management. So the PMP exam, if you are studying for that, you can expect change. So I would say make sure you do your exam before the change. Otherwise, you might be tricked in the end. But anyway, I'm looking forward to see what's going to be the 8th edition from the PMBOK because again, this has been evolving. We are evolving as a society. Project management has been evolving. It's very nice to see that the PMBOK is also evolving there. So by now, what I expect from you, you need to understand what's the PMBOK, you need to understand what's the PMBOK and what is not the PMBOK. It's not a methodology, it's not a framework, it's a standard with best practice. You need to understand what's used for to help to teach to help to project managers to understand project management, to help companies to understand project management, how they can get value with project management, to help companies to create procedures with project management, in some case even give companies chances to tailor their projects there. Don't forget to like and share this video here because if you help me to see the value of my work here, if you have questions, feel free to ask. You are free also to, if you have questions, you can write down in the comments of the video or you can send me a direct message on Instagram. I replied myself. Send me a direct message on Instagram with your question, with your challenge, with your project management. I would love to chat with you there. And don't forget to subscribe for the Project Management Summit. It's a free event, 3 classes. I'm going to teach you much more that we discussed here today, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be valuable for you there. The only thing that you need to do is click in the link. See you there. Bye.